Dr. Wan Rizal.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, may I take questions 16 and 17 together?
Yes, please.
Thank you. The government established Anti-Doping Singapore ADS as the National Anti-Doping Authority in 2010. SportSG works with ADS and the broader sporting fraternity to ensure that sport in Singapore is free of doping, and that our national athletes compete fairly and safely, and that they can be upheld as role models for Singapore and Singaporeans. At the national level, Singapore has a clear, well-established policy on drugs. In the context of sport, Singapore has a framework of rules and standards to keep sport in Singapore free of doping, including the use of both recreational drugs and performance-enhancing drugs. It aims to equip our national athletes with the information, tools, and values for them to exercise sound judgment and choices when it comes to the use of drugs. There are two key strategies through which this is implemented. One, through education and prevention, and two, through detection and deterrence. Let me elaborate. First, education is a key preventive measure to discourage intentional or inadvertent doping, and this is done through various platforms. First, all national sport associations, NSAs, are expected to inform and educate the athletes and athlete support personnel on issues concerning sport doping under the framework. Second, ADS works with NSAs to plan, implement, and monitor education programs for athletes. These comprise regular updates on issues such as the currency of prohibited substances and methods, the health consequences of doping, and the rights and responsibilities of athletes. ADS also reminds NSAs and their athletes on the anti-doping obligations at all pre-major games briefings. Third, it is mandatory for all national athletes to complete modules on the World Anti-Doping Agency's e-learning platform called the Anti-Doping Education and Learning, or ADEL platform, to deepen their understanding of clean sport. To prevent inadvertent doping, ADS provides the Check Drugs function on its website to enable athletes and support personnel to check on the prohibited status of a particular drug or substance. The database contains more than 9,000 medications registered in Singapore and is updated monthly. For medications not on the database, athletes can and should check with a sport physician or with ADS directly. Second, on the detection and deterrence front, ADS oversees a robust doping testing regime. First, ADS develops and regularly reviews a test distribution plan for athletes with higher testing frequencies for athletes assessed to be at higher risk of doping. Several factors are considered in determining the risk level of doping, such as the athlete's performance and the type of sports. ADS's testing regime covers both in-competition and out-of-competition tests. Second, ADS also relies on intelligence, such as whistleblowing sources, to identify and investigate allegations of drug abuse, including following up to conduct tests on alleged offenders. Under the ADS, sanctions are imposed on athletes found to have violated anti-doping rules, and these range from a few months to a lifetime ban, depending on the degree of fault, intention, type of substance use, and aggravating circumstances. These sanctions are made public to send a deterrent signal to others. Other sanctions may also be imposed. For instance, SportSG could suspend the SPEC scholarship or other support offered to a carded athlete. The NSA may also suspend training support for the athlete or their selection for competitions. The Singapore National Olympic Committee, SNOC, or the Singapore National Paralympic Committee, SNPC, may also separately suspend the selection of the athlete for any major games for the appropriate period. Notwithstanding the range of sanctions that can be taken, it is also important to consider a rehabilitative approach to help the athlete not to offend again. The sporting community will work with the athletes to provide counseling and rehabilitative support they may need. The government and the local sporting fraternity looks upon the misuse of drugs as a serious matter. Sport SG, ADS, and the fraternity will continue to work together to underscore the importance of complying with Singapore's laws on drugs and anti-doping rules at all times.
Mr. Darrow David.
I'd like to thank Parliamentary Secretary for his comprehensive reply, both on education and also on deterrence. Just one SQ, Mr. Speaker, on the aspect of education. I agree with Palsec that this is key as a preventive measure. And given that many of our national athletes, or perhaps many of our athletes, get competitive much early on, in school perhaps, would ADS and Sport Singapore consider working with the relevant authorities or the relevant government agencies to go further upstream in terms of providing education to our younger competitive athletes who would obviously hopefully become national athletes, seeing as how the youth could be a bit more impressionable, to have these education programs further upstream such that they are aware of the pitfalls of using recreational and performance-enhancing drugs in the athletic endeavours. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member, Mr. Darrow David, for his question. I think I will make a broad point about what Mr. Darrow David has mentioned. The pursuit of excellence in sport is not just limited to the technical aspects of it. And I think this is consistent across sport and across cultures and jurisdictions, if I may put it that way. In my recent visit to Europe, where I visited a few sporting centers of excellence, if I may call them, in terms of football, I think a consistent message that has been sent is that these academies, these football clubs, they want to produce and create excellent footballers, but more than that, they also want to produce good individuals with good values. So as much as the pursuit for sporting excellence is about fitness, it's about the technical competencies of each sport, it is very much also about values inculcation, the promulgation of values from one generation to the next. So in that vein, coaching as well as the role that coaches play is a very important role that cannot be overstated in the sporting fraternity, and that I agree with Mr. Darrow David. So there can be a lot of scope for us to work, as in for ADS, for Sport SG, SNOC, and the different sporting bodies to work together with the schools and MOE without going to specifics, and definitely I thank him for his suggestion.